Imagine handing over $10 billion and walking away without a single physical asset. No stadium seats, no hardwood courts, and not a single player's contract has your name on it. You've simply paid for the right to exist at a table where only 30 people on Earth are allowed to sit. This is the reality of entering the National Basketball Association as an expansion team. That $7 to $10 billion expansion fee isn't going toward brick and mortar. It is immediately split up and pocketed by the 30 existing owners as compensation for letting another mouth feed from their private trough. If you or I wanted to open a coffee shop, we could buy some espresso machines, rent a storefront across the street from a Starbucks, and start competing tomorrow. Nobody can stop us. But in high-stakes professional sports, you cannot simply build an arena, hire 12 players, and declare yourself an NBA franchise. The league has to let you in, and they almost never do. This creates a highly artificial, intensely protected market. Economists call this scarcity, but it isn't the kind of scarcity you find in nature. It is scarcity manufactured on purpose, guarded by a dense forest of rules and bylaws, behaving less like a free market and more like an ultra-exclusive cartel. Think of it like the global diamond trade. A diamond isn't valuable because it's rare deep in the earth. It's valuable because the supply reaching the public is carefully rationed. Sports franchises work on the exact same logic. By capping the table at 30 seats, the league ensures that the queue of multi-billionaires waiting outside never gets shorter, and as that line grows, the price of admission skyrockets. But why are the wealthiest people on Earth so desperate to buy in? If you look at the annual financial statements of these teams, the math makes absolutely no sense. You see teams setting attendance records, selling out every home game, and yet reporting massive eye-watering operational losses year after year. Today we are going to look past the court, past the championship rings, and past the player trades. We are going to deconstruct the invisible financial architecture of the NBA to understand how a business that bleeds cash on paper can make its owners richer by the day, why a stadium is actually a Trojan horse for a real estate empire, and how the league designed a financial system that virtually guarantees its members can never lose. To understand the business of basketball, you first have to discard everything you think you know about traditional companies. In a normal business, if your expenses exceed your revenues year after year, you go bankrupt. You lay off staff, sell your equipment, and turn off the lights. In the NBA, running a massive deficit is often just another Tuesday. Consider a prominent basketball franchise in a major market like New York. In a recent 2-year stretch, this team posted an operating loss of $80 million in year 1, followed by a $34 million loss in year 2. On paper, they were hemorrhaging cash. Yet, during that exact same period, they were setting franchise attendance records, packing their arena to the rafters with fans paying hundreds of dollars per ticket. And here's the kicker. While those losses were piling up on the operating ledger, a tiny minority slice of the team was sold to an outside investor at a price that valued the entire franchise at nearly $6 billion. How do you reconcile a business that loses tens of millions of dollars in cash with a valuation that rivals major multinational corporations? The answer lies in the difference between cash flow and asset appreciation. If you ask a casual fan how an NBA team makes its money, they will give you the obvious answers: ticket sales, jersey merch, $40 parking spaces, and $12 hot dogs. While those are real revenue streams, they are fundamentally capped. A stadium only has 18 to 20,000 seats. You can only play 41 home games in a regular season. You cannot physically force a fan to eat 10 hot dogs or buy 5 jerseys. Meanwhile, your biggest expenses are completely uncapped and climb ruthlessly every single year. Player salaries, team travel, coaching staff, front office operations, and the massive debt service on the arena itself do not care if you had a bad season. They keep compounding. The gap between what a game day physically brings in and what it costs to put 12 world-class athletes on the floor is incredibly thin. Often it is deep in the red. We've seen this across global sports. Even elite European soccer clubs have posted pre-tax losses exceeding $260 million in a single season, with parent companies absorbing losses north of $700 million just to assemble a winning roster. But the billionaires who buy these teams aren't stupid. They aren't operating these franchises as expensive charities. They know that the operating ledger is practically a footnote. The real game is the appreciation of the asset itself. Over the last few decades, NBA franchise values have compounded at a rate of 10 to 15% every single year. If your $6 billion asset grows by 10% this year, you've quietly gained $600 million in net worth on paper. A $34 million operating loss is a rounding error compared to that kind of capital appreciation. It's like owning a brownstone in Manhattan that goes up in value by $500,000 a year while you lose $10,000 renting it out. You don't care about the rent, you care about the land, but what is driving that relentless appreciation? What is the fuel inside this financial engine? To find out, we have to look at the sky, specifically at the satellites broadcasting these games to the world. In the mid-20th century, a sports team was a local business. If you lived in Boston, you went to Boston games. Your revenue was limited by the physical size of your gate and the population of your city. Then television arrived and it completely broke the gravity of geography. Today, live sports are the undisputed holy grail of the media industry. In an era of Netflix, YouTube, and TikTok, the way we consume video has been completely fragmented. Nobody watches traditional television shows at the same time anymore. We stream, we fast forward, we watch on demand, but you cannot watch a live game on demand. The value of a sports game is its immediacy. The moment the final buzzer sounds, the drama is gone, the highlights are on social media, and the value of the broadcast drops to near zero. You must watch it live or you miss the cultural moment entirely. Because of this, live sports are the last place where advertisers can guarantee millions of pairs of eyes will be locked onto a screen at the exact same second. It is the only unskippable content left on the planet, and the media companies are willing to pay almost any price to control that attention. Just look at the numbers. The NBA's national media rights package covering the next 11 seasons is worth a mind-boggling $76 billion. This astronomical sum is paid by a consortium of traditional television networks, cable giants, and massive streaming platforms who are fighting for survival in the attention economy. Now, let's look at how that $76 billion actually moves through the league. Because this is where the genius of the NBA cartel really shines. That massive pile of national television money does not go to the teams that win the most games. It doesn't go entirely to big market teams like Los Angeles or New York. Instead, the national media check is divided roughly evenly among every single franchise in the league. Let that sink in. You can run your team into the ground. You can trade away your best players, lose 60 games in a row, and finish dead last in the standings. Your local arena might be half empty, and your fan base might be in open revolt. It does not matter. When the national television check arrives, you collect the exact same multi-million-dollar slice of that $76 billion pie as the team that hoisted the championship trophy. Your on-court performance barely touches this number. Your mere presence in the league is what moves it. On top of this guaranteed national check, each team is allowed to sell its local broadcast rights. If you own a team in a major metro area with millions of homes, local regional sports networks will pay you tens of millions of dollars a year just for the right to broadcast your games to your local market. By turning the games into a highly coordinated media product, the NBA has insulated its owners from the typical volatility of the business world. They have created a system where the game on the floor is simply the raw content that justifies the broadcast contract. The contract is the real business. And to keep this media engine running smoothly, the league had to solve a fundamental paradox of human psychology. People do not pay to watch a guaranteed outcome. If the free market were allowed to run wild in professional sports, the entire system would collapse in a single season. In a pure capitalist system, the richest owners in the biggest cities, men with infinite capital, would simply buy up every single star player. The New Yorks and Los Angeleses of the world would win every game, and the smaller markets would be permanently locked out of contention. At first, big market fans might love this, but very quickly, the league would become incredibly boring. If you already know who is going to win before the season starts, you stop tuning in. Ratings crater, advertisers flee, and the value of the entire media contract collapses. The rich teams would end up destroying the very ecosystem that made them rich. To prevent this, the NBA operates as a highly coordinated socialist cartel. The owners have collectively agreed to give up a massive portion of their individual earning power to protect the value of the collective club. This starts with intense revenue sharing. The NBA pools roughly half of what is called basketball-related income, which includes everything from local tickets and concessions to local broadcast rights, and redistributes it to help balance the scales for weaker, smaller markets. But the league doesn't just hand out welfare checks. To prevent owners of small market teams from simply sitting back, pocketing the shared revenue, and fielding cheap, hopeless rosters, the NBA forces these teams to hit a minimum revenue threshold first. You have to prove you are actively trying to run a business before you get your slice of the shared pool. The second major mechanism of control is the salary cap. Unlike other leagues with hard spending limits, the NBA uses what is called a soft cap. This means teams are technically allowed to exceed the spending limit to retain their own star players, but doing so comes with a brutal, escalating financial penalty known as the luxury tax. For every dollar a team spends over the tax line, they must pay an escalating fee back to the league. In some cases, a team might spend $50 million over the cap, but end up paying an additional $150 million in luxury taxes. That tax money doesn't disappear. It gets redistributed directly to the teams that stayed under the cap. The big spenders are literally funding their competitors. And in recent years, the league has introduced an even more terrifying set of restrictions nicknamed the aprons. Think of the aprons as a series of financial tripwires. If a team's payroll crosses the first apron, they lose access to key trade exceptions and the ability to sign certain buyout players. If they cross the second, even higher apron, the penalties become downright draconian. They are barred from aggregating salaries and trades. They cannot send cash in deals, and their future first-round draft picks can actually get frozen at the end of the first round, regardless of their record. The message from the league is clear. We will not let you buy a championship. These rules exist to manufacture parity. They keep outcomes uncertain. By enforcing a system where any team with the right draft picks and smart management can rise to the top, the league keeps the drama alive. The salary cap and the luxury tax are not just competitive rules, they are financial shields. They cap an owner's single largest operating expense, player payroll, and prevent them from getting locked into a ruinous spending war with their fellow billionaires. It is a beautifully designed system. The cartel protects you from your competitors, protects you from yourself, and guarantees a steady flow of shared revenue. But there is one major expense that the league cannot fully control: the physical house where the game is played. And that is where the real estate play begins. When you look at a modern NBA arena, you are looking at a structure that costs between $1 and $2 billion to construct. To an ordinary business person, spending $2 billion on a building that sits empty for most of the year seems like financial suicide. After all, an NBA team only plays 41 regular season home games. Even with a deep playoff run and preseason games, you are looking at maybe 50 nights of basketball. What happens to the other 315 days on the calendar? The smartest owners in the league realized long ago that if you treat an arena as just a basketball court, you will go broke. But if you treat it as the anchor tenant of a massive multi-use real estate empire, you can print money. Consider how these projects are actually funded. In a pure capitalist market, if you want to build a factory, you borrow money and pay for it yourself. But sports team owners have a level of leverage that regular businesses can only dream of: civic pride and emotional blackmail. Because there are only 30 NBA teams in existence, every major city in North America that doesn't have one desperately wants one, and the cities that do have them are terrified of losing them. An owner can credibly walk into a mayor's office and say, "Build me a new arena, or I will pack up the team and move to Seattle or Las Vegas." Fearing the loss of jobs, economic activity, and the devastating blow to the city's brand, local governments routinely capitulate. Across major sports, we see public subsidies covering huge portions of construction costs. It's not uncommon for a $2 billion stadium project to receive over 60% of its funding directly from taxpayers. The economic justification promised to the public is always the same: the new arena will spark an economic boom, create thousands of jobs, and revitalize the downtown core. Independent economists who study these deals have shown for decades that these promises rarely materialize. Money spent at a stadium isn't new economic activity, it's just money redirected away from other local businesses like neighborhood restaurants, bowling alleys, or movie theaters. The economic multiplier is largely a myth, but for the owner, that public subsidy is a massive tax-free gift. It allows them to construct a state-of-the-art cash machine using other people's money. Inside the arena, the revenue streams are highly protected and incredibly lucrative. Luxury suites sold to corporations for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, naming rights deals with tech giants or crypto exchanges worth hundreds of millions over a decade, and high-margin concession and parking fees. These revenue streams frequently belong entirely to the team owner, completely carved out of the league's revenue-sharing formulas. But the real magic happens outside the arena walls. The modern playbook for NBA ownership is to acquire not just the land for the stadium, but dozens of acres of surrounding commercial property. In the American South, one sports ownership group built a massive 77-acre neighborhood from scratch. They built hotels, luxury apartments, corporate offices, trendy restaurants, and a state-of-the-art concert venue, all anchored by the ballpark. A decade ago, the raw land underneath that development was valued at around $5 million. By 2022, after the development was completed, that same land was worth roughly $736 million. In a single recent year, that entertainment district pulled in over 10 million visitors. And here is the stat that should blow your mind. More than 7 million of those visitors showed up on days when there was absolutely no game happening. They came to work in the offices, eat at the restaurants, stay in the hotels, and shop at the stores. In the Midwest, a basketball team executed the exact same playbook, constructing a 30-acre commercial district wrapped around their new arena. They aren't just collecting ticket revenue from 41 nights of basketball. They are collecting high-yield commercial rent checks 365 days a year. This is the ultimate evolution of the sports franchise. It is no longer a sports team with a side business. It is a highly sophisticated real estate and media conglomerate that happens to field a basketball team because the team is the ultimate loss leader. The team is the cultural magnet that draws the massive recurring crowds, which in turn drives the value of the surrounding real estate through the roof. The stadium isn't a cost center, it's a Trojan horse. So far, we have looked at the numbers, the broadcast contracts, the real estate appreciation, the luxury tax redistribution, but if you only look at the balance sheet, you are still missing a massive piece of why billionaires fight tooth and nail to join this league. To understand the final, most potent layer of NBA ownership, we have to look at the sheer physics of extreme wealth. There are thousands of billionaires on the planet today. If you have enough money, you can buy a super yacht, a fleet of Gulfstreams, a penthouse in London, and a private island in the Caribbean. But those are just consumer goods. They don't buy you power. They don't buy you entry into the rooms where the fate of cities is decided. But an NBA franchise does. With only 30 teams in the league, owning a team instantly places you into one of the most exclusive, high-powered rooms on Earth. It is a club so small that money alone is no longer enough to buy your way in. You must also be vetted and approved by the other 29 members. This access translates into an extraordinary form of leverage. When you own the local basketball team, you aren't just another wealthy business person. You are a civic institution. If you want to meet with the governor, the mayor, or the head of a major pension fund, they will take your call immediately. If you need zoning laws changed, infrastructure built, or tax incentives granted for your other non-sports business empires, the city is suddenly incredibly cooperative. Your stadium's luxury suites become the ultimate boardrooms. These are spaces where multi-million-dollar deals are closed, political alliances are forged, and business relationships are cemented, all while a world-class game plays out just a few feet away. The team is the ultimate lubricant for the rest of your business portfolio, and because of this immense external value, the gates to this club are heavily guarded. For almost the entire history of modern sports, the rules of ownership were simple. You had to be an individual, incredibly wealthy human being. The league wanted a single throat to choke if things went wrong. There is only one major exception to this rule in American sports: the Green Bay Packers. They are a publicly owned, nonprofit team held by hundreds of thousands of small shareholders. It is a beautiful community-driven model, and the leagues hated it so much that they immediately rewrote their rules to ensure no other team could ever replicate it. But in recent years, the sheer size of these valuations has created a massive problem for the billionaire owners. When a team is valued at $6 billion, even a multi-billionaire cannot easily write a check to buy out a partner or fund a new arena. The price of admission has simply outgrown the liquidity of individual human beings. To solve this capital bottleneck, the NBA recently opened its gates by a tiny crack, allowing large institutional investors, specifically private equity funds, to buy minority, non-controlling stakes in teams. But make no mistake, this is not a democratization of ownership. These private equity funds are strictly silent partners. The league's rules are draconian. These institutional investors get no voting rights, no seats on the board of directors, and absolutely no say in how the team is run. They are essentially buying highly expensive, highly structured pieces of paper that track the appreciation of the franchise, waiting for the next massive media rights deal to push the value even higher. The power remains concentrated entirely in the hands of the principal owners. They get the glory, they get the control, and they get the keys to the city. It is easy to look at this system and assume it is a perfect perpetual motion machine that can never fail. But every financial architecture, no matter how brilliant, has a failure point. And in professional sports, that failure point is almost always structural. To understand the hidden risk running through the NBA's model, we have to look at what happens when the delicate truce between the billionaire owners and the multimillionaire players breaks down. A sports franchise's expenses are heavily fixed and locked in years in advance. Stadium debt must be paid every single month. Staff salaries, front office payroll, and long-term guaranteed player contracts do not pause because the stadium is dark, but your local revenue can stop in an instant. We saw this play out in Major League Baseball during the infamous 1994 strike. Over a dispute about salary caps and revenue structure, the players walked out in August, and the season simply vanished. For the first time in 90 years, the World Series was canceled. The financial damage was catastrophic, running into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Local television contracts went dark, ticket sales went to zero, concessions evaporated, and parking lots sat empty. Yet the owners were still on the hook for their massive fixed costs. It took years for the sport to win back the trust of the fans and recover its pre-strike revenues. In the NBA, the league and the players' union must constantly negotiate a complex contract called the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA. This document dictates exactly how every single dollar of basketball-related income is split between the owners and the players. Right now, that split sits at roughly 50-50. It is a highly lucrative partnership for both sides. But that partnership relies entirely on continuous growth. As long as the television contracts keep getting bigger, the pie keeps growing, and everyone stays happy. The players get historic $100 million contracts, and the owners watch their franchise values soar. But what happens if the media market hits a wall? We are already seeing the traditional regional sports network model collapse under the weight of cord cutting. If the giant streaming platforms and cable networks eventually decide that sports rights have become too expensive and stop bidding up the price, the fundamental engine of NBA appreciation will stall. If the pie stops growing, the negotiation over how to split that 50-50 revenue share will turn incredibly hostile. The owners, carrying massive debt loads on their multi-billion-dollar arenas, will try to squeeze player salaries to protect their margins. The players, represented by a highly sophisticated and powerful union, will refuse to take a pay cut. When that rift opens, the entire financial floor can drop out from underneath the league. You can find yourself holding a multi-billion-dollar asset that is bleeding hundreds of millions of dollars a year in locked-in costs, with no media revenue arriving to save you. This is the volatility trap of sports ownership. You are never just betting on your own business acumen or your team's star player. You are betting on the continuous, unbroken agreement between 30 billionaires and 450 athletes to keep sharing a massive, fragile fortune. In the end, owning an NBA team is the ultimate realization of modern financial engineering. It is a business that defies all traditional economic gravity. It is an asset where losing on the floor can still mean winning on the balance sheet, where a stadium is actually a real estate empire in disguise, and where the rules of the game are written by a cartel designed to protect you from ever truly failing. But as the valuations climb past $6 billion, the game is changing. The era of the passionate local owner who bought the team for fun is officially over. Today, a franchise is a cold, calculated financial instrument, a highly leveraged play on media rights, real estate, and global attention. It is a reminder that in the modern economy, the most valuable thing you can own is not a product, a service, or a building. It is a permanently scarce, highly protected seat at a table that nobody else is allowed to join. If you want to understand where the world's wealth is actually flowing, stop looking at the stock market. Look at the court. Because the real game isn't being played by the athletes in jerseys. It is being played by the men and women sitting in the owner's box, watching their invisible architecture print money in real time. If you found this breakdown of the hidden economics of sports valuable, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment with which team you think has the most brilliant real estate play, and share this video with someone who still thinks sports are just about the game. We'll see you in the next analysis.